I'm sure that you've had it happen before where you have not gotten the information that you wanted. I am dying to know something, and a person tells you, oh, we'll give you that on a need-to-know basis. Those of you who are in the have military experience, I'm sure you had that, where it's like, oh yeah, it's on a need-to-know basis. You'll know when you get there. You'll know when it's time. I'll tell you when you're ready. All of us as kids experience this, where our parents told us, like, well, you'll understand that when you're older. I hated that phrase, because I want to know right now. Daniel, throughout the book of Daniel, he has been one that God has worked through. As he was in exile in Babylon, he was taken as a prisoner there, forced into service. And throughout his time there, God worked through him. But there was a lot of times when we don't have record of what it was that God was doing. I mean, whole decades where we don't know what God was doing in Daniel's life. And now we have reached the end of Daniel's time. And Daniel 10, 11, and 12, they are all basically one package together. Daniel 10 is sort of the prologue of the vision or the revelation that's given to him. And then chapter 11 we looked at last week was a lot of details about historical events that are happening in politics and in military victories and battles as kings are going to arise and fight each other, and Israel's kind of stuck in the middle there and often the brunt of what is going on. And then that's through much of chapter 11. When we reach chapter 30 or verse 36 in chapter 11, we heard about this guy who's not named there, but we understand by comparing with the prophecy with the historical record. Actually, this is before verse 36. It's Antiochus IV, or Antiochus Epiphanes, who really intensely persecuted the people of God. But then once you get to verse 36, it goes from being historic from our perspective to being prophetic. All of this was prophetic for Daniel's perspective as he's looking forward. You know, this is all the things that you can anticipate happening amongst your people, Daniel. But in verse 36, it is this character that we've not even seen revealed yet in history. And as we look, it's most likely that this person is who is called the Antichrist in the New Testament, a person who, just like Antiochus, is going to persecute the people of God, but at a whole new level. In a whole new scope. It is going to be a terrible, terrible time that is coming. So I want to back us up here to give us a couple of verses to get us started into our text this morning. And keeping in mind this whole idea of, I wish I could know, but having to be content with a degree of ignorance because you don't know. Okay? So chapter 10, I want you to see verse 12 for starters. Daniel 10, verse 12. Then he said to me, this is the angel, do not be afraid, Daniel, for from the first day that you set your heart on understanding this and on humbling yourself before God, your words were heard, and I have come in response to your words. Daniel was seeking God. He was mourning and fasting, and he was placing himself before God, seeking him, and that is why this angel came. And specifically, why did the angel come? Look at verse 14 of chapter 10. Now I have come to give you an understanding of what will happen to your people in the latter days, for the vision pertains to the days yet future. The angel came to give Daniel understanding. Understanding of what? It's the future. Specifically, not necessarily just a future of everything, but the future of what is going to happen to your people, Daniel, to the Jewish people, the people of God. That's what he was having revealed to him. Now, let's go ahead and go to the last verse of chapter 11, which is going to kind of kickstart us into what we're going to see this morning. So chapter 11, verse 45, I'm doing this because this is all one long revelation. We have a chapter break there, but in terms of the scripture, there is no chapter break. It just goes from chapter 11 right into chapter 12. 11 verse 45. He, this is referring to the Antichrist figure, will pitch his tents of his royal pavilion between the seas and the beautiful holy mountain. Yet he will come to his end, and no one will help him. God wins. This person who is against God is going to be defeated. Now, we're going to see in verses 1 through 4 of chapter 12, a lot of things rising. A lot of things that are rising. Keep a lookout for what rises during this time. So let's go ahead and read chapter 12, verses 1 through 4. Now, at that time, this is the end time period, okay? Michael, the great prince who stands guard over the sons of your people, will arise. And there will be a time of distress such as had never occurred since there was a nation until that time. And at that time, your people, everyone who is found written in the book, will be rescued. Many of those who sleep in the dust of the ground will awake, these to everlasting life, but others to disgrace and everlasting contempt. Those who have insight will shine brightly like the brightness of the expanse of heaven, and those who lead the many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. But as for you, Daniel, conceal these words and seal up the book until the end of time. Many will go back and forth, and knowledge will increase. So what we see in this time, it kept referring to that time, at that time, during this time. At that time, that end time, there is going to be a rising of distress. Now, you guys remember when we were kind of thinking we were under the threat of terrorist attacks? What did they do? They had this color-coded scheme. Okay, we're at the green level. That's where everybody can relax. Oh, this is the yellow threat level, the orange threat level, the red threat level. There's an attack imminent. Okay? The level of distress in the earth is going to be going up. They're going to have to invent new colors because it is going to be getting so bad at that time because the distress level is going up. If you want to read about it, go to the book of Revelation. It's going to talk about it in detail about all these bad things that are going to be happening in the earth at that time. Matthew 24 is another good place to go if you want to see a kind of a more summary version of that. But as the distress level goes up, there's something else that goes up, and that is the level of aid that is there for the people of God. There is angelic assistance that comes. Michael, your prince, will arise. Talked about in verse 1. So Michael, your prince. Now, this is an angelic figure. The term prince is used here for those angels or even for demons who are given charge over particular areas. We learned about the prince of Persia, the prince of Greece. Angels who are given charge over a people or a geographic area. And we know that Michael is the angel that has been given charge over the people of God. And whereas he has been operating in the background, it says he will arise. He is going to come and become more active in helping the people of God at that time. So Michael, your prince, is going to rise, the angelic assistant. So keep this in mind as you read Revelation, you read Matthew 24. People often get very scared by reading those things. I don't want to read those scary things about what it's going to be like at the end. Realize, yes, the threats are going to increase, the distress is going to increase, but so is the assistance for the people of God. God is going to give us what we need in order to persevere in those times of difficulty that are to come. And it says that the people will be rescued. Keep this in mind. If you think back to when the children of Israel were slaves in Egypt, God rescued them out of Egypt. But before he rescued them out of Egypt, what happened? The 10 plagues, right? And those 10 plagues, sometimes they affected the entire nation, including the people of God that were in that nation. There were other times with some of the plagues that it was meted out on just the Egyptians, but the Israelites were protected. Sometimes we will suffer along with the world. There are other times where God is going to protect us in the midst of the suffering. But how did their slavery time end in Egypt? They left. The sea parted. God led them out. Sometimes God's protection is keeping you in the midst of a difficulty, either giving you the perseverance to endure it or protecting you from the severity of it, but the difficulty is still there. And other times, he takes you out. He removes you from that. So keep that in mind as you think of these persecutions and difficulties that are to come for the people of God. We are the people of God. We are going to be enduring difficulties too. God can give you the strength to endure it. He can protect you in the midst of it, or he can take you out of it. We know that all three of those things are going to be a part as the end time events unfold. Now, there's going to be another rising that happens. Okay, not only the threat and the assistance, but also, like in verse 2, it said, there is the rising of the dead. Many of those who sleep in the dust of the ground, those who are dead, are going to arise. Now, some are going to go to, it says, everlasting life, and others to disgrace and everlasting contempt. This is just a little snapshot. If you want to understand more details about this, I'm going to give you 2 different chapters that you can look at in the scriptures that will explain this in more detail. 1 Corinthians 15 talks a lot about the new bodies that we are going to get and what it's like when we are raised. And Revelation chapter 20 explains how this is not just one resurrection. It is actually 2. The resurrection of the righteous happens. When Jesus returns, those who are resurrected, and they will reign with him for 1,000 years. 1,000 years later is the resurrection of the unrighteous, where they stand before the great white throne of God to be judged. There is a resurrection of the righteous and the unrighteous. Here it's kind of put together, but in reality, it's actually two separate events. We explained this before, but in prophecy, often from the prophet's perspective, they see something as one event when it's actually two. Okay? So now if I hold up this hand here, you can see my hand. Now if I hold this hand behind it, okay, if you're looking straight at my hand, you can only really see one hand if you're looking straight at it, because they're behind, one behind the other. From Daniel's perspective, he's seeing one resurrection. But as we go through the New Testament, you can see there's actually a gap between those two hands. There's actually two resurrections separated by 1,000 years. Again, that's all explained in Revelation chapter 20. But be certain, the dead will rise. The dead will rise. Now, there's also going to be another rising that's going to happen, and this comes in verse 3, and that is the rising up of teachers. Rising up of teachers. It says, those who have insight will shine brightly like the expanse of the heaven, and those who lead many to righteousness will be like the stars forever and ever. There is a brightness that comes as truth is revealed. And here you've got not two different groups, but think of this as two ways of describing the same group because they have two functions. A teacher is one who needs to help people understand, to give insight into something. Okay, it's making what is unclear clear. But from the perspective of those who teach God's word, if you are only teaching to instruct people or inform people of knowledge, but you're not giving them instruction as to how to live, it is inadequate. God didn't give us this Bible here to fill our heads with knowledge. He gave it to transform our lives and our actions. So they are not only those who are giving understanding and insight, but leading many to righteousness, to living rightly. When you hear the word of God, when I teach the word of God, when somebody instructs others in the scripture, it should always, always result in a change of life in how it is that we live. That's what these people are going to be like. And as the world is getting more and more wicked towards the end time, those who are living righteously are going to shine more and more brightly. It's going to be very, very clear who God's people are and who they are not, because it's going to be harder and harder to live as a child of God during that time. And then it also says in verse 4 that knowledge is also going to rise. Knowledge is going to increase. But Daniel here is told to seal up these words for a later time when they will be revealed. Now, that's what Daniel is initially told here at kind of the end of his this revelation. Okay, all of chapter 11 has been this revelation. It ends here now in verse 4, and then it switches just a little bit to a question that is asked, but it's not a question by Daniel. It's one I think Daniel may have had, but is actually asked by an angel. Look at verses 5 through 7. Then I, Daniel, looked, and behold, two others were standing, one on this bank of the river and the other on that bank of the river. And one said to the man dressed in linen, who was above the waters of the river, this is another angelic figure, how long will it be until the end of these wonders? I heard the man dressed in linen, who was above the waters of the river, as he raised his right hand and his left hand toward heaven, and swore by him who lives forever, that it would be for a time, times, and half a time. And as soon as they finish shattering the power of the holy people, all these events will be completed. How long? When? Isn't that our question often when we go to hear prophecy? When's it going to happen? I want to know. When is it going to happen? And it is answered in two different ways. It is answered, first of all, with the calendar. The calendar. Time, times, and half a time. Okay, that was clear. What exactly does that mean? I want to know what was that, 5 minutes? Is that a year? Is that, what is this referencing when it says time, times, and half a time? Now, this is not something new for us. If you look back at Daniel 7:25, it says, speaking of the little horn in this vision, he will speak out against the Most High and wear down the saints of the Highest One, and he will intend to make alterations in times and in law, and they, the saints, will be given into his hand, okay, this oppressor, for a time, times, and half a time. Okay, so this is not new in Daniel, but still it doesn't give us the clarity to know what that means. But if you look in Revelation chapter 11, Revelation is where a lot of this stuff is made clear for us. Revelation and Daniel really go together very well. Revelation 11, and I'm going to look at verses 2 and 3. Leave out the court which is outside the temple, and do not measure it, for it has been given to the nations, or the Gentiles. And they will tread underfoot the holy city for 42 months. And I will grant authority to my 2 witnesses, and they will prophesy for 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth. So 1,260 days, that nails it down even more clearly what this, the duration of this time frame is. Okay, it's not just time times and half a time. This is 42 months. That's 3.5 years. So we know that this time frame is 3.5 years. Elsewhere, it's actually told to us that it's, well, I'll get to that in a minute, how many days it is. So it's this length of time. You can measure how long until all this is completed by looking at the calendar. But there's something else that shows how long it is. You guys know how things are measured in different ways. Okay, if I say, well, how long is it to church? Okay, you might answer, okay, it is 4.2 miles. For me to travel from my home to where our church gathers, 4.2 miles. Or you could say it is 10 minutes. You can measure it in time. You can measure it in distance. Or sometimes you measure it by how long it takes to finish something. And that's what we see here. It's not just the calendar. It is also measured in completion. What did he say? Until the power of the holy people has been shattered. Until God's people are ground down to dust. Until things are so bad. We've got nothing we can do about it. And that's when it's going to be completed. That's when God's going to show up. That's when God is going to intervene, is when that has happened, when that is complete. Now, I want to read to you, flip over in Revelation to Revelation 13, verses 5 through 7. And this is going to bring together the calendar and the completion in one passage. Revelation 13, verses 5 to 7. Now, it says, there was given to him a mouth. This is to that the arrogant oppressor. Given to him this mouth, speaking arrogant words and blasphemies, and authority to act for 42 months was given to him. He opened his mouth in blasphemies against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle, that is, those who dwell in heaven. It was given him to make war with the saints and to overcome them, and authority over every tribe and people and tongue and nation was given to him. He could trample down the people of God. Authority was given. Permission was given. He was given enough leash to trample the people of God for a limited time until their power was shattered. Now, Daniel has had all this information revealed to him. And so his information quotient has risen. He knows more than what he knew before. But he is still left with questions. People of God, do we still have questions? I don't understand, God. There's a lot of things that God has revealed to us in Scripture. But you know what? There's still a lot of things I don't understand. I don't understand necessarily when this stuff's going to take place. I don't understand exactly how it's going to look. When it speaks of these things, it's like, how does this parallel when it talks about horses and chariots and swords when we have tanks and planes and guns now? When these wars are going to unfold. I don't understand. But it's not just the prophetic in the future that we don't understand. Sometimes it's looking at our present circumstances or even what has already happened. I don't understand, Lord, why I have this thing happening in my body right now. I don't understand why that person left. Lord, I don't understand why you took this person from me. I don't understand why I'm struggling. I don't know. And God may reveal an awful lot to us, but not necessarily enough to answer all of our questions. Daniel here is still left with questions. Even after this angelic dialogue, how long is it going to be? Time, times, and half a time until they're shattered. Daniel is still left with questions, and so he voices a question of his own. Daniel's not spoken for a couple chapters here, but now he speaks up. Okay, let's go ahead and look back in Daniel chapter 12 in verse 8. As for me, I heard but could not understand, so I said, my Lord, what will be the outcome of these events? I'm hoping that verse 8 is an encouragement. If he didn't understand, you know what? It's okay if you don't understand too. It's okay if we don't understand it. It is also okay to ask God when we don't understand. God, I don't get it. Please explain it to me. But we have to realize who we're asking. We are asking God. God who knows all, God who will reveal an awful lot, but God who also says, that's on a need-to-know basis. Sometimes you are not going to have all the answers you want, and we have to be okay with that. So let's see how it is that the angel responds to him as Daniel asks, what will be the outcome of these events? Verse 9, he said, go your way, Daniel, for these words are concealed and sealed up until the end time. Many will be purged, purified, and refined, but the wicked will act wickedly. And none of the wicked will understand, but those who have insight will understand. From the time that the regular sacrifice is abolished and the abomination of desolation is set up, there will be 1,290 days. How blessed is he who keeps waiting and attains to the 1,335 days. But as for you, go your way to the end. Then you will enter into rest and rise again for your allotted portion at the end of the age. What's going to be the outcome of all this? Well, the first thing Daniel's told, go your way, Daniel. Go your way. We've told you what we need to tell you. Go your way. Daniel, that's actually at the beginning and at the end here. Twice he's told, go your way. You're not going to get all the answers that you want. But he does have a little bit revealed to him that this information is concealed until the end time. Daniel's job was to receive the information, record the information, and then reserve that information for a later time. You know what, Daniel? We've told you, write it down, record it. This will make sense to later generations. This is for other people to know, not necessarily for you to know. Ouch. But you know what? This is not a rebuke of Daniel. Daniel was a man who was faithful, and he served God's purposes at that time. And his purposes mean that he's also serving us as well. Sometimes what you are not told is not for you to know. If you will be obedient with what God has given you, it will serve others in the future. It will be passed down to your kids, your grandkids, and on to others as well. He has told a little bit about the cast of characters that will be a part of this end time. That was in verse 10 there. It says that there's, many will be purged and refined. Those who have insight will understand, but the wicked people won't. The wicked people are just going to stay wicked. It's not going to make a difference in them. This information will help those who are righteous, but the wicked is not going to help. All the way till the end of time, there's going to be those who love the Lord and are following him. There's going to be those who are not. Those who are wicked are going to become worse and worse, but those who are righteous, God is going to grow and refine. Even though they have to go through this, they're purged and refined through the hardships that they go through. That's us. Know the hard times are coming, but this is going to minister to us. God is going to continue to reveal to us what we need to know when we need to know it. Now, there is some more calendar information here. The 1,290 days, the 1,335 days. And I got to tell you, I don't know what that means. All right? Different commentators have different ideas, but it's all supposition. Because it's 1,260 days is the 3.5 years. So what's this 1,290 days? And then you tack on another 45 after that. But you know what we do know? We may not know exactly what's going to happen at those times, but look at verse 12 again. How blessed is he who keeps waiting and attains to the 1,335 days. What do you have to do? I don't have to know what's going to happen. I just have to wait. I have to persevere. I have to hold on and keep doing what's right while I wait. Don't give up and be faithful all the way to the end. And that's really the lesson for today. When God reveals stuff to us, that's great. And it can be very helpful. When God chooses not to reveal stuff to us, well, we have to trust him in that. But what do? Persevere. Wait faithfully and keep going. And know for sure that God has good for you on the other side of this. Because what is Daniel told in verse 13? But as for you, go your way to the end. That end there probably doesn't refer all the way to the end because he didn't live all the way to the end. Probably to the end of his days. Live out your days, Daniel. Go your way to the end. You've served your purpose. And then you will, three things. You'll have rest. You're going to enter into your rest. Daniel, you're going to die, but that is a time of rest for the follower of God. You're resting from your labors. Enter into your rest and know for sure that you are going to rise again. There's going to come a time when you are going to rise, and there's also going to come a time when you are going to receive your reward. You've been faithful, Daniel. Just go your way, keep being faithful all the way to the end, and know that you got these three good things coming. Some of us don't look forward to death. I think it's a scary thing. But I also know that I've been around enough older people whose bodies are failing them, and they say, I'm ready to go home and be with Jesus. I'm ready. Take me home. I want to be done with this. I just want to rest. Daniel could look forward to that time of rest. Can you look forward to it? If you don't know Jesus, death is not something to be looking forward to. That's separation from God. That's hell. That's fire for all of eternity. It's pain. It's terrible. But if you know Jesus, you don't have to fear death. You can actually look forward to it because it is a time of rest. And we can also look forward to the fact that after that time of rest is done, we don't know how long it's going to be. We do know how it's going to end, though, because we are going to rise. We are going to rise up on that last day. We're going to get new bodies that are not subject to pain. It's going to be the upgraded human body 2.0. It's not going to have all the problems that our current ones have. And we're going to live in that body through all of eternity. And it says that you're going to receive your allotted inheritance. You're going to receive your reward. God has rewards for his children. Now, those rewards are based on how we lived our lives now. Did you guys know that you're racking up rewards for the future based on how you live your life now? We can look forward to the time when we are going to stand before Christ to receive rewards for what we have done faithfully. In 1 Corinthians 3, it talks about how we're all going to stand before the judgment seat of Christ. And we're going to receive rewards based on what we've done. And it also says in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, I think it's verse 7 or 17, that day is going to come when we're going to stand before him. But Revelation chapter 20, when people are standing before the great white throne of God, that is a time to be judged based on their deeds for the purpose of punishment. If you belong to Jesus Christ, when you stand before him, he is judging you. And if you're not an unbeliever, you stand before the great white throne of God and you are being judged. But those judgments are two different ones. If you're a believer, you are judged for the purpose of determining what rewards you get. Okay, think of it like the Olympic medal stand, gold, silver, bronze, okay? Differing rewards, but none of those people stand there expecting to be flogged. Okay, you failed, you're wrong. No, it's just determining their rewards. When you stand before Christ, it's to determine your rewards if you're a believer. If you stand before the great white throne of God in Revelation 20, you will be judged, but it's judged based on your deeds. Did you reach God's standard of perfection? Did you ever sin? If you ever sinned, you're not perfect. Depart from me into hell. That's the answer if you have not reached that level. For those of us who are in Jesus Christ, did we reach that level? Absolutely not. Did Jesus reach that level of perfection? Yes. And so since we are in him, we are counted worthy. We are counted as accepted before him. And that's why we can look forward to that day. Don't fear death. Look forward to rising and look forward to your reward. That's why it is that we can be content when God doesn't give us all the answers that we want. Walt, would you come lead us in our closing song? As we do, I want to offer a twofold invitation this morning. The first is based on those two judgments. Do you know which one you're going to stand in? Do you know if you are standing before the Lord for the purpose of being rewarded because of the fact you already belong to Jesus? He already paid for all your sin. That's why there's no punishment for you. If you are not certain of that, please, as this song is playing, slip down here into the front pew. I would love to introduce you to Jesus. Have you give your life over to him so that you know which one you're going to stand before. The second invitation is this. Are you living with the certainty? If you already know that you belong to Jesus, are you living with such certainty that you can go your way? I don't understand all that's going to happen, God. I don't understand even why you did some of the things in the past. But I can trust you, and I can just go my way knowing that you've got it taken care of. If you are lacking that peace, ask God for that. If you want somebody to pray with you, I'd be glad to do that as well. But you can just do that on your own and say, God, I want the peace to just be able to go